From time to time in the history of a place, revival breaks out like fire on dark stubble. The time and place are not necessarily of man's choosing. Cane Ridge, Kentucky was one such unlikely place. At the turn of the 19th century, a humble preacher, Barton W. Stone, ministered to the Cane Ridge Meeting House in Bourbon County near Paris, Kentucky. At that time, this region was the western frontier of the still young nation. The spiritual and moral conditions of the country were declining. Atheism was spreading. The colleges forsook their religious roots and became extremely liberal and immoral. In addition, the western frontier became a haven for criminals. A friend wrote to former President George Washington, "Our affairs seem to lead to some crisis, some revolution, something I cannot foresee or conjecture. I am more uneasy than before the war." Washington replied, "Your sentiment that we are drawing to a crisis accords with me. What the event will be is beyond my foresight." The event credited to stemming the tide of infidelity and immorality was the spiritual awakening. Daniel Boone, who had explored these regions and recommended that settlers move here, requested that churches be built to keep the pioneer settlements civilized. In such a desperate and dangerous time, the more religious settlers had no appetite for denominational squabbles. They went wherever the Bible was proclaimed. And many people despised denominational pride and religious partyism and were willing to meet together in evangelistic efforts to reach the unchurched. In this social climate, when the small Presbyterian congregation at Cane Ridge announced a Bible meeting to convene in August of 1801, people showed up from all over the region. Estimates of 20,000 people descended upon this out-of-the-way, barely accessible location. Revival fire broke out. Wherever a preacher could find a stump or a stone, he would stand up and preach. Historical accounts recall the contagious fervor that characterized the meetings that continued day and night. Revival time kept no hours. The meetings lasted until the provisions for people and horses ran out. Because of the numbers of people attending and the length of the meeting, Cane Ridge became the metaphor for the great Western revival of that time. Now, out of the Cane Ridge revival came something very significant for us today. Barton W. Stone became convinced and began to preach that all Christians should unite on the basis of the Bible. If denominations would give up their man-made creeds and simply follow the Bible, we could all be simply Christians. In 1804, Stone and a group of Presbyterian ministers from Kentucky and Ohio penned and signed a document, the last will and testament of the Springfield Presbytery. They renounced their denominational ties and became independent churches of Christ, whose sole desire was to restore the church to the New Testament pattern. Throughout the whole of the 19th century, this restoration movement became the fastest growing religious movement in America. Today, early in this 21st century, conditions of society are not unlike 200 years ago. Secularism with its attendant atheism, liberalism, and immorality spread across our country. Colleges are again citadels of liberalism, the vain philosophies of this world, and immorality. Vast numbers of our population are irreligious. Society is more depraved than then. The religious landscape is just as confusing. denominations abound more than ever before, while at the same time, most people seem to be less and less concerned about those denominational loyalties. Like Washington in his time, our affairs seem to lead to some unforeseeable crisis. We need a spiritual awakening. O God, may a revival time catch fire in this unlikely place in our time among us. Amen.